I'll you can sing them out. Okay, I'll call the meeting to order. It's 9:02.
7:02?
1902. 7:02 in old language. If anybody has an intention of addressing council, I would advise you that you need to put your name on the list. The first opportunity for public address is 2 minutes on any topic. There is a second opportunity at the end of the meeting, 2 minutes on any topic discussed at the meeting. So just be aware of that. And I'll now ask for a motion to adopt the agenda. And a second. Peter, I believe you have some changes that you need.
So there's some additions from our Council Strategy Committee meeting this afternoon. Under 8D1, we'll have the Core Services Report recommendation.
D1. How do you figure that? I've got nothing under 8 right now.
That's why you'll now have 8D1.
What's A, B, and C?
Yeah.
So
What happened
B8.
to our usual format?
Yeah, I took it off there because there was nothing. So.
So
but
previously, normally we would
it's
have
8.
staff,
Oh, I see.
council, committee, etc., etc. So
Okay, well, we'll keep that. So that's 1, 2, and 3 taken care of. A, B, and C. So this one will be
Core Services.
D1, Core Services, yep.
and 8D2 will be the 2017 to 21 5-year financial plan recommendation.
5-year plan, yep.
3 will be 2018 Lions Bay Beach Park upgrades recommendation.
Yep.
Item 9B is in Bob, is a resolution to be brought forward regarding event parking relief for some events that are coming up.
Okay.
12A will have as the on-table report regarding temporary use permits for short-term rentals, so policy 1702. And 12B will be policy number 1703 regarding community amenity contributions.
Yep.
And then just an additional 2 grounds upon which to close the meeting. 91I, which is solicitor-client privilege, and 92B is a Bob, which is municipal and provincial federal discussions.
Municipal, high levels of government. Okay, that's it.
That's it.
So with those additions,
Oh, sorry, just one
Yeah.
other comment with respect to the agenda. In respect of the public participation section, right now we have as the very first item is the opportunity for persons who consider that they're affected by road closure bylaw number 517 to make representations to council, and that's the road closure of the road end at Crystal Falls Road in between 51 and 53 Brunswick Beach Road, and so that would be opportunity A if anyone wants to speak on that first, and then I think we should have B would be any member of the public speaking about
fine.
any other thing.
And it is fine within the requirements of the regulation that we can do it within a council meeting. We don't have to recess the council meeting.
No.
Open a public hearing.
No,
Okay.
it's not a public hearing. It's simply an opportunity
To be heard.
for people to be heard, and I suggest that council be prepared to relax the 2 minutes if someone wants to speak on that for longer.
Yeah. Okay, so with those multitudinous amendments, all in favour and opposed? That carries. So we will now move to public participation. I will call on persons who consider they're affected by the road closure bylaw number 517 of 2017 to make representations to council. I'll call for a second time for persons who consider they're affected by the road closure bylaw number 517 of 2017 to make representations to council. And I'll call for a third and final time for persons who consider that they're affected by the road closure bylaw number 517 of 2017 to make representations to council. Seeing none, the opportunity to make representation to council is closed, and we'll now move on to public comment. Councillor McLaughlin approaches the podium to retrieve the list.
Mr. Schwartz.
Mr. Schwartz. Welcome. You can talk from there, however you... It's easy street here.
Well, it's related to the same thing that I came the other day. I see that it has been backtracked. Just two comments. The first one, it mentions that I've been doing the cutting of the trees next to the ones that the village wants to cut without any permit. I just wanted to clarify that this comes from a few years back. The tree committee visited the place. There was a complaint from one of the neighbors saying that it was too tall, and they decided to cut it, and they said that I should do it. So there's no paperwork, but in principle it has been delegated on me, which I've been paying for and I've been doing these years. It usually happens once every 3 years, so it's not very often. And we usually, we always use a professional company. We don't do it ourselves. So the same people that you would hire, we hire. So that's the first thing. So if you want me to get a permit and you want me to start doing all the paperwork, I'm fine with it. I just need to know. Okay? That's the first thing. The second thing, I see that the expert has said that it's better to cut them completely instead of just doing the trimming. The only thing that I would talk about is the comment that he made that he doesn't understand why people are asking for it since it's not impeding the view, which is what I said at the beginning when I showed my pictures. So maybe the whole thing could be delayed a couple of years until they grow, beyond the view, and then we can consider what to do.
Yeah, just, I don't suppose you happen to remember the page, but I remember seeing that picture of the view.
I probably still have.
It's on page 48 of 132.
I drew a line so that we could see.
This is from the expert. He did a very similar thing.
I didn't see the,
Yeah.
I saw the summary, I didn't see the exact.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm looking at here, but certainly doesn't seem that the trees in question, which is that green line, I believe.
Yeah, that's what I meant. I was seeing it from another point of view.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But that green line is below the line of any other of the trees right behind, right?
Yeah.
Is that so? We're looking at it correctly. Okay. Okay. Thanks. Yeah, got that.
So my suggestion would be to delay it, but obviously that's up to you. So that was it. I have nothing to say against the expert since I have no idea about trees. So.
Okay. Thank you for your comments. Was that it?
Yeah.
That and no more public sign-ups. Okay. Thanks. So we'll move on to first. I will get back to the agenda by removing this. To public delegation, we have one, Mark Ignos.
Am I up now?
Oh, if you're Mark, you're
You're up.
you're up.
Thanks.
Thanks. Cheers. Bye. No problem. You couldn't have timed it better. In fact, another 5 seconds, you would have been late. Welcome. You have 10 minutes to address us on the topic of your delegation request, and we look forward to hearing.
Or are they?
Absolutely.
Thank you for accepting our delegation request. For those of you who don't know, this pertains to tree permit application number 75, which was submitted to Lions Bay office November 17th. I guess my first comment was that for whatever reason, the application seems to have been politicized right from the start. When the application was submitted, although I didn't do it, I understand it was one of my neighbors that submitted it was advised that the application would never be approved. Since then, it seems to have, I guess, gathered snow, if we're looking at an analogy of a snowball, and continues to be fraught with difficulty. By way of history, we submitted the application, we canvassed the neighborhood as requested, which was also problematic in that we were told twice to go back and canvass lots that were vacant. And canvass people that weren't even impacted by the application, and they gave us emails to that effect why they didn't reply to it. We then followed up with our survey with meetings with neighbors to address their concerns in person, and we thought had a very favorable application at that point. We also went ahead and hired an arborist to ensure that at the end of the day the recommendations were appropriate relative to stand management and forest ecology practices, and brought all that information forward to our meeting with the tree committee, and left that meeting with what we felt was a reasonable, appropriate prescription for the topping application as it was presented. My understanding that on March 7th, Mr. Schwartz, whom I don't have the pleasure of knowing, was allowed to present to council on our application without notice to ourselves. And based on his presentation, convinced council to accept a tree topping treatment that ignored the original permit request, arborist report, recommendation of the tree committee, and I think a treatment that is not even consistent with good forest ecological practices. Given the above, I would ask why the opinions of Mr. Schwartz have become, or seemingly become, the defining references for tree permit number 75. Given that we've never had Mr. Schwartz, as I said, advise us of his concerns. He did not attend the tree committee meeting to ensure that his values were considered in the recommendations by the tree committee, or have any contact or advice to us as to what he would like to see in terms of the application and the topping and pruning treatments. I understand that we're also invited now to resubmit the application, and I again would like to know why, given that we've already submitted it once and did a significant amount of work to ensure that the application was sound and followed due process, and in fact was consistent with proper ecological practices, we would have to go through this process again. And just a better understanding, I guess, from council as to what is the approval process for a tree permit. Thank you.
Thank you. I just have one question, then Ron, I'm going to turn it over to you, seeing as you're the tree committee guy. So the original application was to top the trees. That was your original application, is that
Yes.
correct? Yeah. And then what came to council was instead a recommendation from the tree committee and staff to remove the trees entirely.
Remove some trees, sir.
Some trees, okay, yes, right. The ones further up the bank, or leaving some, anyway, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Then Guillermo came and said that he didn't want them removed, but he was happy with them being topped, or he wanted to do something different.
He wanted to do the topping himself.
But-
He wanted to maintain those trees because they impact his driveway.
Okay. So the application, as you've submitted it, and as I'm hearing you say you would like to let stand, is for topping.
I would like the application, as we submitted it, be guided by the recommendations of the tree committee and the report of the arborist.
Okay.
Which was
So-
not topping.
Pardon me?
Sorry, which was not topping.
Well, the arborist recommended two things. One is the stand as it exists is very dense and actually doesn't promote good forest ecology. So he recommended some of the bigger trees removed, some topping be done at the end of the day. And he said the only time topping should really be a practice for forest management if you're trying to create a large hedge.
Yeah.
And then one of the other pieces we talked about with the tree committee was potentially planting some ground cover and some low, I guess, low rising trees to stabilize the slope. But at the end of the day, I don't have the expectation with my expertise to be out there guiding the process. We fully expected the arborist to guide the process and ensure that at the end of the day we were left with a stand management treatment that was appropriate for the health of that forest.
Okay, one more question, and then I'll let Ron do his thing. So the tree committee recommendation that we see on page 46 of the package, which says that trees marked with orange tape, photos taken, will be removed. Is that the trees that, so it's not all of the trees, it's some of the trees?
Well, I never saw the final treatment of the tree committee because when we were on site, we talked about leaving some and taking some, which was very issued. So I think the original marking was done by Public Works, and I don't know if there's more subsequent marking by the tree committee. But if that's, I don't have the benefit of the pictures based on council meeting. So when I look at the stand right now, I'm not sure what trees are to stay, what trees are to remove. And again, I don't suggest that my input should be the reference. It should be
No, we hear
that
you.
of an arborist.
Yeah.
So before
Okay.
Councillor McLaughlin,
Yeah, shoot.
I just wanted to clarify a couple of things. One is that the trees that the arborist suggested could be topped were trees that had already previously been topped in the driveway above Mr. Schwartz's driveway. The trees in Mr. Schwartz's driveway had not previously been topped, were smaller trees, and he suggested a different treatment with respect to trees lower on the slope. Within the middle of the slope and the larger trees that Public Works had come along after the fact and marked as perhaps these larger ones should be taken out and some of the understory cleared out. Essentially, the Public Works recommendations were agreed with by the arborist. So the arborist had suggested topping the ones on top of the driveway, but that wasn't the subject of the application. The subject of the application was these trees in Mr. Schwartz's driveway, which were not the same trees as what the arborist was referring to. So there's a couple of things, there's a few things that went on with his application. There's a number of different trees and different markings of trees, and I don't think it was clear before council as to what trees were being discussed. Secondly, the arborist report was not before council, which is a big problem. And I'm not suggesting that it is the applicant's fault that that happened. I think that that's a process issue that we need to correct. But where an arborist report existed and had a lot of recommendations as to what should happen, and it should have been before council. And I think we need to do something. My recommendation is for council to agree to do something about that and for staff to do something about that. But
Are you suggesting it was withheld on purpose?
no, I'm not. I'm suggesting that
Just didn't go
somehow
forward.
it fell through the cracks and it didn't come before council.
Okay.
I blame myself as much as anyone.
Well, actually, no, I blame myself on this one because I had seen it, but I didn't attend the final meeting here. And when events occurred, then I sent you some other emails. That's when the thing popped out.
Right.
So
But
I think you're generous in taking this, Peter, but I think it's the tree committee owns this one.
Okay, so what is the final, okay, so,
Thank you.
because I will just add, I've talked about these trees more than I ever thought I'd talk about.
And, well, if you'd gone with the recommendation the first time, we wouldn't have.
Well, I don't think the recommendation is the
Anyhow,
recommendation
let's
anymore.
just, firstly, thank you, Mark, for a very clear and concise reference of getting through stuff that we've gone over before. I think the first thing you said is that it's been politicized from the beginning.
I see.
I can please take my sincere opinion on this one, that tree committee is ambivalent as to who it is. They're being focused on a certain particular job. The council members here may know or may not know some of the neighbors, but it's just not what comes up in our regular kind of business. So please, if you feel that way, you do, but it's not what affected the tree committee or the council members. Having a personal representation may have swayed a vote at the time, but what I can tell you now is that fast forwarding here, that the council reversed its decision off my recommendation at the last council meeting, and staff has gone away and made yet another recommendation here.
Okay.
So I think if that's a long way to perhaps getting where everybody wants to go, then we're going to be cutting bait tonight.
And please point me at that recommendation.
Sorry, the recommend.
It's in Peter's report.
Yeah,
It's on page 19.
We'll get to it. Yeah.
So, and Peter, I have nothing else to add other than the final piece for Mark was, which would have been one of my questions, the purpose for a reapplication versus we all know what the ask is, I think.
Well, except that the trees that the arborist suggested could be topped were never the subject of the application, as far as I can tell.
I'm hearing they're different trees as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you look at the arborist report, they're different trees than what's been marked as being
Okay,
the subject
so
of the
we need to
application.
go back to ground zero to the tree.
Yeah, start
I
again.
think, if I may, we had the arborist report in here, and then we looked at it with the tree committee, and at the end of the day, I guess it would be our request that we have a follow-up meeting with the tree committee to properly confirm what should be topped and or removed.
So the official tapes,
Yeah.
Well-
the official tapes are on the particular trees.
Yeah, because to tell you the truth, when I look at now, I'm not sure whose ribbons are whose.
Yeah.
and-
Start with a new
what's
color.
to be done.
Get a unique color and start again.
And the tree committee should, we can actually, if it's helpful, ask the arborist to attend at the same time, and the two parties could work together to define. At the end of the day, we're not interested in having the trees fall down in front of our house. We're not interested in having the trees die in front of our house. We want to ensure that the final treatment is just consistent with good forest ecological management practices.
Right. The thing is, I guess, that the tree committee's meetings must be public. They must be, notice of the meetings must be given, so that the public, anyone interested, has an opportunity to attend. And so that's why I had suggested just reapply for the recommendations, essentially the recommendations that are in the arborist report, because that's not the application that came before council the first time, as far as I can tell.
Well, the application was simply to top trees, and then through a series of meetings, it transformed into top and remove. And so
They're not
that's
the
why it
same
changed.
trees,
But we
though.
thought and additional trees were added and additional trees were taken away. So we understood from the get-go that the process was live. At the end of the day, to say, well, so I'll agree with you. Yes, it might not have been the initial application, but the final application is, the recommendations of the tree committee were what we had expected to be considered by council as the reference for the permit, because, relative to your piece about public meeting, well, I think the process wherein residents were supposed to put their values forward were at that tree committee meeting, and the only people that were in attendance there were the tree committee representatives, myself and Kathy Mitchell.
Do I understand correctly that Guillermo Schwartz,
Was not
Did
consulted.
not go to that meeting,
I don't think he knew about it?
Yeah.
Well,
but that's not again on me.
No, it's not your job.
Yeah,
So now, is it possible that we can get, the recommendation says to do certain things to certain trees as marked? Are the trees marked?
I think there's,
Has the tree committee seen the marked trees?
can I add something to that?
Yeah, sure.
As of today, the trees that are marked aren't representative of what we talked about with the tree committee,
Okay.
to be removed or topped. So
so,
that's why I'm saying we should reset this.
So Public Works went in there and marked trees that they believed should be removed as well.
Different
which
color?
were- Which were the larger trees. So the blue striped tape is that of Public Works.
And so, in that this is actually Mr. Schwartz's driveway, and he obviously has, has an axe to grind. I need a recommendation from the tree committee on trees that the tree committee knows are the ones that are going to come out.
Well, the tree committee doesn't stand down because they've already made the recommendation, so we have to go back.
But they haven't looked at the trees.
We have to go back to Peter's, which is next up after.
They've recommended different trees.
we're not at this place in the agenda.
Yeah,
yet,
no, I understand. No, I'm only going by what we've seen. So, from what I understand, I've been given the sort of the old,
Yeah.
don't bring it up yet. There's a recommendation in the public package that I believe will address your delegation, in that the trees that you want to see done are going to be done, and some consideration given to Mr. Swartz's request as well.
I'm going to save my answer for when we get to that item in the agenda.
Okay, well, I'm trying to address the delegation.
Through it and then-
It's
Oh,
going to come up soon, so if Mr.
got 10
Ignis
minutes, we're gonna be there.
wants to watch,
Okay,
we'll get there.
So is the process, and just forgive me because I'm new to the procedures of Lions Bay Council, but is the process that Mr. Swartz has a direct line to the tree committee? Or
No.
because it is seemingly operating outside of the policies of Lions Bay.
The tree committee meets in public, and whoever's there is there, and
Can I ask you, and again, it's not to be disrespectful, but how did Mr. Swartz's recommendation come to be considered by the tree committee? If he wasn't at the
wasn't.
meeting?
It wasn't.
It wasn't.
It didn't go to the tree committee, it came
Didn't
straight
go
to
the tree
council.
committee.
So,
He came
So-
direct to council.
So just as Mr. Schwartz attended that meeting where the matter was being considered by council, sought an opportunity to speak, was given that opportunity by council, made submissions with respect to the application, council made a decision. Had the applicants attended, I'm sure they would have been given the same opportunity to speak to the matter, and who knows what council would have decided.
but your suggestion, Peter, is not consistent with council policy, and that's the reason for giving council the history this evening. We followed all the defined procedures to have an application considered. Nothing in those procedures says, after the fact, come to a council meeting, don't even put in a delegation request. Ask to be considered to be.
Well, it was actually a delegation, just like yours is now, but
But there was not, that's not what the minutes say.
council can only go on a I mean, none of us, and I've really talked about these trees more than I want to now, we go on a recommendation. The recommendation was such that we felt that it was not talking about the same thing, and I'm hearing there was not the Arbus report was never presented to the tree committee and or council, I don't know. So I guess what I'm really saying is, I believe, I'm now given to understand, we have a hard and fast recommendation that's in the package, which starts on page 19. It's a fairly voluminous recommendation. You might want to quickly glance at that.
Can we get a copy of it? I don't.
Yeah, it should be floating around, there should be a copy of the binder floating around there.
And actually, you're gonna have a chance to review it while we go through a piece, but I think we're gonna be done in about 10 minutes.
Yeah, it won't take long. So, not to force you off on anything, because I think I hear what you're saying, and I think I'm hearing that, well, I don't want to presuppose what council's decision will be, but stick around.
And my only concern is that, we essentially stood down when the tree committee and the others request came forward and agreed at the meeting to follow those recommendations. If there's the ability to bring sort of personal influence or view to it, would like to ensure that it's a fair treatment at the end of the day.
So would we.
The recommendation that's being contemplated.
Absolutely. So let's go through this other small piece of business first, and then we'll get to the actual decision. So stick around. And I think the package is floating around there. So take a look. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Thanks for that. There being no further delegations, we'll move on to approval of the meeting minutes from March 21st, starting on page 11. I believe I have absolutely nothing to add.
I had nothing on this. No, I had nothing.
Is that a change to the minutes? No? This was a pretty meaty meeting, but I think the minutes encapsulated perfectly. So can I have a motion to that regard and a second? Thanks. Any further discussion? All in favour? Opposed? That carries. So business arising, there being none, we'll move on to unfinished business. I move that we waive discussion of unfinished business to another day. Can I have a motion on that? Second? Thanks. Any discussion? All in favour? Opposed? That carries. So we'll move on to reconsideration of tree application number 75. I believe, Peter, you have a report you wish to walk us through.
Okay, so I think that I know council's read the report, I don't want to regurgitate it, but what we have is, we had an application by, as I understand it, more than one applicant. It is in the name of one applicant, but there was a few of them together, which is fine. But the application, the pictures that came with the application were for a row of fairly small diameter trees going up Mr. Schwartz's driveway. We did have an email from reception that actually from Mr. Schwartz on December 2nd, who advised that he was not canvassed by the applicants with respect to the application, and that he was affected that the trees went up his driveway.
Can I just interrupt?
Yeah.
The fact that they're going up his driveway, there's still public trees.
Yeah, because the property line was a
It's-
ways up his driveway,
Got it,
like
okay.
many of them are.
Okay.
So the trees that were marked and in the photos to be topped clearly affected his driveway. After the fact, so when the application, when the tree committee went, I'm going to back up one more.
Yeah.
Public Works
We're
went
now-
out to visit the site.
Before the beginning.
Yeah, so Public Works went out to visit the site, to view, to provide their input, and suggested that really what would be a better outcome for this area would be to remove some of the larger trees, which probably had more to do with blocking views, to clean out some of the understory, which was very thick and prohibiting healthy growth. And to maintain the smaller trees on the slope for slope stabilization and possibly plant something else that would be assisting in that respect but not inhibiting views, and to get into a cycle as the trees grew up of removing the largest ones, leaving the smaller ones to keep the bank stabilized. As it turns out, the applicants did hire an arborist, and upon I think the tree committee had the opportunity. I'll let Councillor McLaughlin jump in any time with respect to this part of it, because I'm not quite sure of the what
Timeline.
happened next in the timeline and so forth. But the tree committee, I believe, had the benefit of the arborist report.
Yes.
And essentially, I'm not sure how they came to the recommendation they came to, which was to, instead of topping the trees that had been marked, which went up Mr. Schwartz's driveway, instead to remove those trees, to cut and remove them. Because that recommendation, when one looks at the arborist report, it's hard to reconcile, because the arborist report indicates that trees that are on the top of the slope, which would be, I believe, the applicant's driveway, had previously been topped. The arborist said, go ahead, retop those, make them safe, etc., etc. Take out some of the larger trees from middle of the slope and mow down, as was recommended by Public Works, and to not top or remove the trees which had been marked as being the subject of the application. So council didn't have the benefit of any of that when the application came forward.
But the recommendation that came from the tree committee did.
Yes, and so the tree committee recommended removing. Public Works actually recommended removing other trees, and the arborist recommended removing other trees and topping other trees. The trees that are the subject of the application were not recommended by Public Works or the arborist to be topped or removed. I'm not sure how the tree committee came to the conclusion that they should be cut and removed.
The ones that they said should be.
Yes.
They said you can't have
But
those, but you should do these.
Notwithstanding that recommendation, and the recommendation of Public Works, and the recommendation of the arborist, which council didn't know about, council heard from Mr. Schwartz,
Who objected vehemently.
who wanted to, rather than removing them, his fallback position was topping. I don't know, he didn't surprisingly hang around for this, but
You may not realize.
his I don't know whether his preferred position would be don't cut them at all, but if they were going to be cut, his preference was clearly topping over removal. Council heard from that and made a decision that
The topping seemed to be close to what everybody had been requesting anyway.
It was the initial application.
Yeah, it satisfied him as well.
So the recommendation in this report at the end of the day is that council reverse its decision to top those trees, and because those trees were not they weren't recommended to be cut at all by the arborist report. And if I understand Mr. Ignace correctly, they seem to be open to following the recommendations of the arborist. So really there ought to be an application to do what the arborist recommended be done, which is also what Public Works staff recommended be done, which would not involve cutting in any way the trees that go up Mr. Schwartz's driveway. So that's essentially what number
So
one
it's
says.
entirely new tree application, in fact. Different trees altogether.
Because it's a different application than what was submitted and what council had to deal with. So
Different trees entirely?
So I guess council could say it's a related application and therefore we can waive the fee of $75, and we can reset a meeting with the tree committee to go to the site and hopefully have the arborist come as well, if that's possible. And then anyone whose interest may be affected, or any member of the public could attend the meeting, and hopefully there would be a consensus recommendation come out of that would come back to council, and council could say, okay, that makes sense, go ahead.
Well, based on so the tree committee recommendation that's before us is for different trees.
The tree committee recommendation before you was to cut and remove the trees that were flagged with orange tape, which are the smaller trees that go up the side of Mr. Schwartz's driveway.
The arborist recommendation is something else entirely.
It's something else entirely, and which from the pictures in the arborist report, it's hard to understand why the applicants would want to cut the trees that went up Mr. Schwartz's driveway, because they don't appear to block the view. But
certainly that's what the arborist says, and that's what Mr. Schwartz says the last time he came for us.
Right.
I'd be prepared not to require a new application, but just let the tree committee see the once and for all marked trees.
Well, I think it's a
It
formal
started from there.
process, so as Peter says, it, or let's call it a related thing, and with the fees waived, it goes back to the tree committee, and,
What about the canvassing and all that stuff?
well, it's already been done,
We'll set a date so that
so that we post it,
But
everybody.
the canvassing's been done for different trees.
I think
I would recommend that Public Works go there and remove all the tape and we start from scratch.
Start
So
again.
we're talking about the same trees. Everybody has an opportunity, including Mr. Schwartz,
Yeah.
to be on site.
And the tree committee, most importantly.
Absolutely, yeah.
I don't see, I mean, certainly we can waive the fee, right? I
Yeah.
don't think that's an issue. And how can we save some of the paperwork? I mean, certainly we need to do another canvas, because, I mean, it's not strictly protocol, but I mean, seeing as you're right here, let's hear. I mean, we had understood you to say that you'd be happy with effecting the arborist's recommendations.
The arborist actually said, you know what, tree topping, as been discussed by Peter, is not appropriate. And so he suggested a blend of removing trees, and so the application again got novated from what we initially thought was going to happen to what we got for professional advice back from the tree committee and things. I'm not I'm not averse to due process, but this has been 4 months plus. It's been a tremendous amount of work to basically chase, to end up with the result where we first started. I would.
But let me just interrupt you, sorry. I understand we're talking about entirely different trees. From the initial applications trees to the ones that the arborists recommend,
They're the same trees.
but they are the same trees.
When we brought the arborist out, he was looking at the trees that we had marked for the application. Those were the trees that were considered for the survey. And we had meetings with neighbors, I didn't, but Kathy did have meetings with neighbors to discuss the application, because the survey couldn't have gone out without the trees in question being marked.
I'm just confused on a higher level now.
Well, and I think that's why it has to be back to ground zero. I think,
that-
as Nye said, the tapes need to be pulled, it has to
But
be.
the tapes that are on there are the trees that are being requested.
But can I, if I
Yeah,
may-
please, yeah.
Can I ask council this? I respect the work and the effort of the tree committee and their experience in this area. Rather than have anyone involved with the exception of the tree committee and the arborist, could we allow them to meet and go on the recommendations of those two parties?
Well, I think that would be our preferred position, but it's more work for you guys.
Being invited,
Council
yeah.
has to approve that.
Yeah, we still have to approve it, obviously, but
The recommendation will come back to the tree committee.
yeah.
Well, you folks would be
Yeah.
defining that
Yeah,
recommendation.
so it'll come back to council through the tree committee, the
Yeah.
arbors. And we would ask the public works attend as,
There's a real metric around forest ecology that has to be considered. Just topping is no longer a sound forest management practice.
Yeah, I mean, I know less about trees than most people, but I just need a recommendation. But I keep hearing different trees, same trees, previously marked, not marked. Sorry.
I can say, just to clear all the confusion and everything, if they resubmitted an application, just minimum pages, not all the pictures or anything, if they submitted an application that was basically outlining the conclusion of the arborist, it'd have my vote, it'd pass in an instant. So is that the simplest way to do it?
Well, except would Mr. Schwartz object to any of those?
I don't think so.
Okay,
Like,
well-
I think the
Well-
issue of the dead stumps and everything removed would suit him fine, but he didn't want the wholesale removal of all the trees on the bottom and leaving his bank unstable. I think the arborist is.
Said the same thing?
Yeah.
but the process.
Sure, shout it out. Otherwise, you'll never get a
But
word
the
in.
process is the tree committee, the council doesn't lead the deal, it approves the deal. So the process is, you go to your public, you've got the information here, there's the driver, the trees are clearly marked.
I would suggest that the tree
Ground
markings
zero.
be removed, an appointment or a meeting be set up for the tree committee to be on site, Public Works can attend, an invitation to Mr. Schwartz should be made so he can attend, and
And you go and pick and choose trees there and then?
an amicable solution.
And
could
the
be
ones that are
developed.
approved for removal get tape put
Well,
on
yeah.
there for the first time then?
Yeah.
Which means the arborists need to opine on which trees he meant, right?
Correct, and Public Works is very pleased with the arborist and has asked the arborist to come back out to look at several trees separate to this, so
Well, we're gonna have to pay a finder's fee now.
Well, can I ask if there's a difference of opinion between ourselves and Mr. Schwartz at that meeting? Whose opinion is going to be considered?
Well, then you'll have to come to compromise because we've spent enough time on this. You're gonna have to compromise in front of the tree committee.
The tree committee would be they're the ones that are gonna take the flack, so you can
Yeah.
air it out there, it's
Yeah.
not the council's issue.
But from what because I'm sort of losing track of which stand of trees we're talking about.
Myself as well.
Yeah, my understanding is that we're talking about trees that he would not have an objection to. Because the picture that we see in the arborist report is very similar to the one that he provided us saying, why would you remove these? You don't need to. Remove these instead. And I think that's what we heard from him last council meeting.
My understanding at the conclusion of the meeting with the tree committee was that the tree committee was going to work with Public Works, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, to define what the final treatment of those stands was to be, based on the results of that, or their recommendations out of that meeting.
Which was to cut and clean,
Yeah.
mark trees.
That's
I'm seeing head shakes now, so I think we spent enough time on this. I think what we're going to have to do is
Throw it back.
follow the recommendations of the report, which encapsulates everything we've discussed, right, Peter?
More or less.
And ask for a re-app we will, as part of the receiving the recommendation, waive the fees,
Expedite the application.
expedite the application, put it right at the top of the pile. It's not a very deep pile, so it won't be very difficult. Require minimal. You telling me we have more than one right now?
It's a deep pile. It's not a deep tree pile, but it's a deep pile. Just so we're clear.
I was only talking about the tree pile.
But you could really post the date for the tree committee, so,
I need to.
there's your benchmark, so you've already set your date in the sand ahead.
And what can we do to alleviate the paperwork burden, if anything, Peter? Because it's a pain going around to the neighbours and asking, soliciting opinion.
Well, if we consider it the same application, but just a reclarification of which trees we're talking about based upon the arborist report, then, and we already know who's affected and who the interested parties are. Based
all be
on the
involved.
previous opportunity for their opinions being made known. So I think I think we can expedite it.
So if you revisited the existing application substantially, Peter, which means that we don't have to do the paperwork again, really.
No, although I think it would help to have, if people
Fresh
are clear in
application.
terms of what it, the
Well-
existing tape should be removed, and the applicant should put new tape on those trees that they think are what ought to happen, hopefully in accordance with the arborist report. And then everybody meet on site, Public Works, Tree Committee,
So like-
applicants, Mr. Schwartz if he wants to, and I don't know if the arborist would want to attend or if you want to invite the arborist to attend. But then it can be settled, and hopefully a recommendation would then come from the Tree Committee back to council, and council can make a decision.
So the trees could, so Peter, not to put words in your mouth then, so at this preset date where the tree committee, theoretically Public Works, arborist, the applicant, the opponents are all there, trees, the stand can be viewed, the trees can be marked, and open discussion and recommendation.
Okay, what I'm going to do is...
So it can be done in one shot, and then come back.
Can I ask a question?
go ahead.
One of the reasons for marking the trees in advance was to have those surveyed, was to give those surveyed a reference as to what trees were, or the subject area trees were. So how do we provide that knowledge after the fact? If
Well,
we have to have a
Public
survey.
Works manager, Jaffer would say take them down and start fresh. You can leave the markings where they are, and we'll just get a different color tape and we'll say, yeah.
Yeah, I think what we'll just do is we'll ask staff to work with the proponents, that's you guys, on the exact nitty-gritty of the process.
Yeah.
So I'll move that we reverse the council's decision of March 7th, 2017, and this is the change, I'll give it to you later, Shauna. Direct staff to work with the applicants to resubmit an application to top the previously topped trees on top of the bank adjacent to the driveway at 445 timber top, along with the balance of recommendations reflected in the arborist report. This should include an ongoing maintenance requirement and deposit to cover future reductions in trimming. I further move that we send the issue of topping and future maintenance requirements and deposits, therefore, back to staff for potential amendments to the Trees, Views and Landscapes bylaw, number 393 as amended, after consultation with the Tree Committee. And I further move that in the interim, we implement a policy that no topping will be permitted unless the trees in question have already been previously topped. And even where previously topped, strong consideration should be given for complete removal. Those motions encapsulate the staff recommendation. Was that a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
Small point, aren't we rescinding our decision as opposed to reversing it?
Corporate Officer?
Let's go
Dijon?
back to the minutes here again.
It's a reconsideration. You're reconsidering. You either confirm or you reverse. You confirm or rescind. I think we're just.
I think you're right,
just
Brett.
playing with
It's not
words,
reversing, is what exactly is reversal? Is it 180 degrees?
So
170?
But if you're-
the previous motion was that council reconsider the matter.
I think rescind is a better word.
Okay, so I'll amend my motion, the first part of my motion to rescind the council decision of March 7th. All else remains the same. And a second on that one. So this is on the amended motion. I'll call the question. All in favour, opposed, that carries. And that then supersedes the original motion. So no need for a question on the original.
Okay, so what that means that you've got is that a date in the near future will be the date that.
I think that's right. Or do we have
open
to,
meeting
do we have to
on
take a
site.
vote on the original motion?
The whole scape of other events there. Nobody's going to change any markings. Final mark.
Because it has to be turned down.
And then
Because
the
the way
tree committee will listen to, it'll be just like a formal meeting thing where people can do their things. Hopefully it's not raining too hard.
Oh, I could have done it from here.
And tree committee will make their opinion.
Oh, pick and
They'll come back.
From the report.
So the work will be done at roadside for the recommendation.
Do we have to resubmit the application?
You can work with staff on that. They will go out of their way to ease your burden.
We do,
But
okay.
we do have to resubmit the application.
Well,
We'll talk. Send me an email.
we're gonna ease your burden on this one.
Okay.
It's going to be easy.
The only request I'd have to council, and I appreciate you don't necessarily know the tree committee schedule, is that if we could have that meeting within a month, we'd appreciate it.
Yes.
We'll fast track it if you just say that you want those trees,
Sure.
and then we'll go from there.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. I think that's probably the best result you can hope for in the ways that municipal wheels grind pretty slow. This is really fast. Our heads are spinning. Okay, so we'll move on. Everybody's welcome to stay, of course, but I wouldn't necessarily suggest that this is going to be scintillating, unless you're in the business. What? He says it is scintillating. Okay, so we're moving on to reports. Is that correct? Have I got it right? Yeah. Thanks for coming, guys. Does anybody particularly want to do staff, committee, or council reports?
Actually, in a roundabout way, where did it go? Hang on. I did have one thing that I would like to involve, if I can do this as kind of a tiny committee thing, which had to do with the pulling together canoe thing. Safeway's response has been positive. It's at their public relations department. Now we're talking logistics as to provision of stuff. They're talking about refrigerated trucks coming and their tenting and stuff like that. So we have to start firming up what our ask is. So
Tents?
whatever it
Yeah,
is to parcel up the sandwiches and stuff like that. There was going to be tenting anyhow.
don't think so.
Covered things.
I was gonna bring that up earlier, but we didn't.
Oh, perfect. Thank you very much.
FYI.
So I think now that kind of got the warm reception, I think I need admin to assist me with this one as to where we go with this.
I guess we need to talk about what kind of offering they are talking about, whether we're talking sandwiches or what are we talking about?
Well, we're down into the nitty gritty.
They being Safeway.
They being Safeway.
Just not quite
They'd
sure
like-
I understand the tents.
Or the refrigerated trucks.
Well, they're going to bring
Where
the
they even
stuff here.
And make sandwiches on site?
No, the stuff would be done.
It would be done in a
beforehand.
factory.
Right.
The stuff would be done beforehand. They
Bring it out in a
They bring it out
set
here
up tents.
so that it's here. It
Yeah.
goes from where the fire trucks would be on Canada Day to we were going to provide tents, or Safeway said they have tents as well.
Okay.
So, we need some form of covering. And so it was about, I did firm up the numbers with them, but I think it's gotten past just the councillor making the approach for the sponsorship here. We're into the logistics here.
Okay.
So I was going to loop you in through the email, and that way it keeps
All right.
staff involved. So that was really the point of bringing that up.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we're still talking about 400 guests.
450.
450 now.
Well,
Not including anybody.
the entourage plus.
Date change.
Well, is that going to work for us?
I hope so.
changed the date, didn't he? Or something?
Oh, they changed it.
To July 12th instead of July 13th.
Which is a Wednesday.
It's a Wednesday.
instead of Thursday.
Okay.
Didn't have any sort of things jump out at us as being a major issue for that day as opposed to the next day.
Okay.
But if there's anything that you're aware of that we ought to know about,
Because I got a phone too.
Wednesday is often Metro Day. May what?
no,
July.
July.
Wednesday, July 12th.
How do I do this? I'll just write it down. I'm not going to bother now.
Well, okay, well, it's still a work.
I mean, they you know.
It could be the 11th by the time we're finalized.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, they're just changing the route now?
Sorry, you read the one sentence. I don't know, maybe the horsepower is a little faster. No.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so as far as we know, I mean, I'm only bringing this up because, you know, when 450 strangers turn up on our beach, it's a big deal.
Yeah.
So, thank you, Shauna, for keeping me in the loop on that. So that was worth the news, so I'm gonna loop staff in on this and try not to go over the deep end. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks. That's very worthwhile to know. These things tend to come up quicker than we think. May, June, July, the what? 11th.
12th.
Yeah, I won't be here.
Missed your sandwich.
They're gonna name the sandwich after you.
Yeah. July 12th. Yeah, I'm going to be in France.
Well, we
I
don't have to
suspect
worry
you would
about
have been
Metro.
gone on the 13th.
Well, then you
too.
probably were there on the
Yeah.
13th anyhow.
Yeah.
How does that work?
I don't know. Is it July or June?
July.
Yeah, I wasn't going to be here anyway.
Enjoy your baguette.
Okay.
I will.
We'll be serving the Bain basket
Yeah.
instead of the Burr basket.
Yeah. Better get your Squamish brushed up.
Cheese spaghetti.
Okay.
Actually, isn't Jim the alternate with Bain? Isn't he the summer alternate?
It's not me. I'm done.
July, August?
No, July would be you.
Is that me?
Yeah.
Oh. All right.
And then it would be the newbie from October.
Okay. It'll be the McLaughlin bun. Okay.
Have to give you a secret.
Just keep your speeches short.
Well, I gotta get the greeting from you for the sound firm.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, good. So we'll move on. There's any staff reports?
Yes, from the CSC.
Yeah, but we've got those as special things.
But there are-
The Ds, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But any other committee, staff, council? No? Okay, we'll move on to report section D1, core services report. Peter, I believe there's a recommendation from the strategy committee to council.
Yes.
Lay it on us.
So that recommendation is for staff to pursue a number of options. Firstly, to reorganize the general ledger accounts to match the CSLR categories to better enable tracking of activities. To review provision of boulevard vegetation management, which may require a bylaw with respect to maintenance of boulevards. To review and assess levels of service for trails, including insurance coverage for volunteers, increased liability insurance for the village, and prepare a work program and standard of care. Fourthly, to prepare for the addition of one full-time equivalent employee and truck during the 2018 budget process by adding that cost now to the 5-year financial plan. And number 5, to post the core services report prominently on our website.
Yes, those were them. I was just, yeah, no, that's fine. That's a nice deal. So we'll take that as a motion. Can I have a second? Any discussion? The discussion having taken place largely this afternoon. So I'll call the question. All in favour?
Sorry, just as a matter of procedure, I think it would be beneficial for you to just quickly summarize the nature of that discussion without taking too long, but I think it deserves...
Can't people refer to the minutes of the
They
the
can, but
meeting?
at the very least, refer them to that, and yeah, I mean, it's...
Okay, Mr.
Couple
Bright,
of-
just you do it.
Okay, if you want to refer them specifically to the minutes of the CSC.
Yeah, I mean, so
that's,
essentially what happened was that we discussed those 5 options around preparing the 5-year plan and core services review. And the bottom line is we have a lot of core services, some mandatory, some discretionary, some obligatory. I think we were all quite sobered by the depth of the requirements that Public Works has to undertake, and so we were made aware of some of the solutions to these issues. We discussed some emergent problems to do with trails and boulevard maintenance that we've directed staff to proceed with in terms of presenting council some options and recommendations. And we asked to make sure that people were aware of the challenges that we face, both in an era of downloading and just taking on increased responsibility in terms of external regulations like garbage handling and water quality and all these things, that the report be prominently displayed on the website, both the current website and obviously the revised new website. Is that sufficient? Yeah? Okay, good. So we have a seconded motion on the table, as yet unvoted on. So can I ask for those in favour and opposed? That carries. And then we have a second report, the 5-year plan. Pam, do you want to do the honours on the recommendation? Or does Peter have it?
Do you have the recommendation?
No, you have it.
I have it. That's not it. I think it was just that they received the 5-year plan, isn't it? Yes, we reviewed the 5-year plan. Council has made one recommendation that we adjust the amount received for the proposed sale of the Public Works land, and that it be brought to the April 18th meeting for first and second reading.
The Council Strategy Committee, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, thank you. That's, what about these ones?
No, these come next.
Those are next.
Yes.
Oh, that's why I didn't see it. Okay, so it's essentially a recommendation from the Strategy Committee to receive the report with some amendments for bringing to the April 18th for
First and second.
meeting.
As well as a public presentation at that meeting as well.
Yeah, right. And we are doing the public presentation as part of a council meeting, not a separate thing.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't actually appreciate that. That's good. Okay, I'll take that as a motion. Thanks, Fred. Second. Thanks. Any further discussion? All in favour? Opposed? Carries. And so now, where do these fit in? These are under resolutions.
Don't we have D3?
You got Beach Park.
Beach Park?
Oh, sorry.
Didn't want
Okay,
to list those. I
and
wasn't sure
a
whether
third
these were
report.
Just resolutions.
Beach upgrades.
No, we had these would be, I thought it was part of our discussion around the
Around the
5-year
5-year plan,
financial
so we
plan.
can do it now
Yeah,
instead of
yeah, I think
resolutions. Okay.
Okay, so these are
So-
further resolutions or motions for resolutions.
Yes.
recommendations to council.
Recommendations to council that a separate fire protection tax rate for the 2017 tax rate bylaw be removed, and that the bylaw have only one tax rate for the general municipal. So it's essentially removing the fire levy.
Fine, we'll take that as a motion. Thank you. And a second. Any discussion? This being a recommendation from the Council Strategy Committee, all in favour and opposed, that carries.
And that staff change the property tax class multiple for recreation nonprofit to equal the residential tax class multiple at 1.0 for purposes of preparing the 2017 tax rate bylaw.
Thank you. I take that as a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favour and opposed, that carries. Okay,
And
thanks.
And
There was,
Mayor, perhaps you could editorialize for a second on the fire department.
Yeah, so it was pointed out by staff that having a separate line item on the tax bill for a fire levy didn't really serve much purpose anymore now that the fire appliances have been bought and paid for, which was its original purpose. In fact, the fire levy doesn't bear any relation to the actual cost of fire. The money it purports to raise for fire is actually far less than the fire budget. And so council felt that it was both good optics and good practice to move any fire costs where they actually come from, which is out of general revenue. And so there will be one specific line item for municipal taxation,
Yes.
out of which comes everything that
Public Works.
we all spend money on. Is
Thank you.
that do it?
Yep.
Okay, good. So that's a past resolution. You were going to say?
There also, it looks like it got cut off the business rate. You had asked staff to come back with a report.
for a report, yeah. Do you have
about
that
the,
report?
business rates. Yes, I mean, it was just a verbal. I basically ranked the business ratios for BC, and, Lions Bay's is, as we discussed, Lions Bay is 3.07. The average of BC is 2.61, and the median is 2.49, so we are above that. The rate we use for the GVRD is 2.45, which seems to be sort of the more popular one. That's kind of the middle of the road for the municipalities. And then I ranked it alphabetically. You had asked what Vancouver's was. Vancouver's is, just did them alphabetical. Vancouver's is 4.23, so quite a bit higher.
So they ding their businesses big time.
Yes, West Vancouver is 2.8, so it's a bit lower than ours. Valcara, which is a similar size, is 2.45, so it looks like they use the
What's
GVRD
Richmond's,
rate.
Pam?
Richmond's is,
Sue Ding School. Richmond and Burnaby, for the sake of argument.
Richmond is 3.2, so it's higher than ours. Burnaby's 4.2.
So the bigs are in the upper class. Okay.
No, those are all NDP ridings. They're dinging big business.
Yeah.
Well, they are. And the conservative/liberal ridings have very low business tax. There's no surprise there.
Bowen Island is actually the same as their residential. Looks like they keep most of theirs the same.
They're independents.
Yes.
They're green.
Thank you very much.
So, I mean, I don't know what we want to do about that. We would need to understand the implications to,
Yes.
what sort of absolute dollars are we talking about and what would be fair.
That's right. Staff were going to recommend that it's something we look at for next year. I mean, these aren't locked in,
Yeah.
because we also wanted to look at how we determine the business versus residential rate for water and for solid waste as well. That's being sort of just set. We followed it for years, and I don't even myself understand what the logic is. So I thought we could look at the whole business in terms
I
of
like that.
tax,
Yeah, I like that.
sewer,
Yeah.
and water
I like that.
for next year.
Yeah.
Because we've just set the policy for this year, but we can re-examine the policy every year.
We may even consider water metering for certain class of users, so we can work
Good for you, Pam.
it out quarterly totals, now that we can actually measure our water. Yeah, that's great, thanks. Why is our multiplier such a funky number?
I think it's just what the mill rate works out to when we calculate the mill rate, and then we take it as a percentage.
I see.
of the,
Okay.
So they're all, to use the term, funky.
Yeah,
Most
so I mean,
of
it's 3.07, I mean, what difference does 700ths?
1.6846, 1.658.
Okay, so it's calculated.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
just
okay.
a calculated,
Okay.
to give you a sense.
Okay, well, thanks. Let's have a motion to receive that report then, and let's include in that motion,
Keep the rate the same.
keep the rate the same, but direct staff to bring back a report for next year's budget
2018.
on rationalizing all this stuff to make it
Business
easy.
rates in total, I guess, yeah.
Well, that's it, all rates, all multipliers, yeah. Including utility rates.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so take that as a motion. A second? Thanks. And any further discussion? All in favour? Opposed? That carries. Now on to a final report on beach upgrades. We saw, we had a report from Councillor McLaughlin. Can we get the recommendation, please, Peter?
I can read it out.
Thanks, Sean.
So that staff provided consultation plan for the beach park upgrades by the June 6th, 2017 regular council meeting.
Okay, consultation plan for the public to opine on what they would like to see for fairly major changes to the beach, if indeed they are major, to be effected in time for summer 2018. Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so let's take that as the motion. And a second for that. Thanks. And any discussion? Having really discussed it at length this afternoon in Council Strategy Committee, I will call the question. All in favour? Opposed? That carries. Okay. We're now moving on to Section 9 resolutions. The first is my request for a resolution. Some background on this one. As you know, through the good offices of the Infrastructure Committee, we have interested, what I can make out, probably one of the most qualified world expert water source hydrology experts in the world, Dr. Stephen Weiss, who's recently become, I think he went straight into tenured position at UBC from the University of Delft. He's done his research in the Swiss Alps. He proposes and is already working quite hard on doing some work on Lions-based hydrology with a view to answering some fairly fundamental technical questions on a very long-term horizon. To govern what they were and were not doing and what we and were not doing, the IC tasked me, as it happens, with putting together a draft memorandum of understanding, which I then ran by the IC and then ran by UBC. It went through a few rounds, and we came up with a final that is now with the UBC legal office for final execution. We expect it imminently. It's been circulated, I think.
Just realizing we don't have it attached.
Yeah, I didn't see it in there. It's not in the package, in fact. I think you've all seen it, but it will need to be there because, okay, well, that was my report. Hold that thought for next meeting. Let me just think on the timing on this one. Well, there is a timing issue. That's to apply for the Green Municipal Funds.
I didn't see that was a tight timeline.
It's not a tight timeline. I reread it. It's no specific timeline on that one. Can it wait 2 weeks?
Well, certainly, it's the direction in here, as it's worded, was for staff to explore potential
Just to ask them what they thought.
opportunities,
Yeah.
to send it off, to send the MOU off to FCM and say here's what we're dealing with and what can you suggest in terms of your programs grant programs that we can apply for and how can we get funding for this.
Well, here's how we could do this: is Fred, you could move that the IC has seen it and endorsed the wording of the MOU.
Yep. My question is, do we need it in hand to?
I don't think so. I've got 2 IC members on Public Works right
Yeah,
now.
and the wording as is now being executed has been endorsed by some fairly, let's call them,
Eggheads.
well, I was going to call them no BS experts. In fact, I got roundly cascaded for being a little late on putting forward. Okay.
So instead of saying substantively in the form attached,
Yeah.
it could say substantively in the form reviewed by
Endorsed by the IC.
or just reviewed by the.
Well, it's more than they endorsed.
Okay, reviewed and endorsed
Yeah. Okay.
by the Infrastructure Committee.
Okay, I'll read this out then. Okay, so I would move that Council approve the Memorandum of Understanding between the Village of Lions Bay and the University of British Columbia pertaining to long-term study of the hydrology of Lions Bay's water catchment, substantively in the form reviewed and endorsed by the Infrastructure Committee, and further that Council authorise the Mayor and the CAO Corporate Officer to execute the MOU when it's returned for signature by UBC, and further that Council directs staff to forward the MOU to FCM's Green Municipal Fund to explore potential grant opportunities. Did you catch it? Thank you. I'll take that as a resounding second. Yeah, this is pretty cool stuff, I have to say. Any discussion? All in favour? Opposed? That carries. Thank you. Yeah, I'm pretty... We're going to take this document in hand and go to the feds and saying, look, we know you don't have a fund for this, but you got to fund this. Because the point is that the work's applicable around the world. Any mountain catchment, assuming it's constant, is not moving by earthquake, this work is applicable, which is why UBC is so interested in it. It's good science for them. It gives them very cooperative political environment 30 kilometers away from UBC to come and do their research. Okay, bylaws.
Sorry, no, there's an additional.
Oh,
resolution.
event parking, sorry. So what's the deal?
So the proposed resolution is that staff not enforce parking bylaw number 413 during events to be held at the Broughton Hall on April 6th. So that's this Thursday's public information meeting on the bylaw. April 27th, both meetings from 7 to 9 p.m. The 27th is provincial
All candidates
election,
meeting?
all candidates meeting that's being held here. And on May 5th, which is the House on Community Forum from 8 to 6 p.m. I've put. Other than with respect to required clearances for fire hydrants and designated parking for emergency responders around the Clap building.
You're such a nerd. Such a municipal corporate officer nerd.
I'll take that as a compliment.
It is a compliment. Can we have that as the motion and a second?
Is the works manager giggling?
No, I've been informed he doesn't giggle.
Yeah, see, that's a deep laugh.
Can I just ask Peter, in the discussion phase, what organization rented the hall for the all candidates meeting?
That is. I think I've got it. It was. Shoot, I thought I think I've got it over here. Sorry. Yes. Future of House Sound Society and David Suzuki Foundation have partnered to host the all candidates debate.
Fine, legitimate organizations, in other
Yes.
words. Security.
I did think about its compliance with our new policy regarding.
Yeah, that's where I'm going.
Even though it's not.
It's not a
strictly
municipal
applicable.
election. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I think it ticks all the boxes. So.
What sort of have they put a deposit? Damage deposit?
I'm not sure. They would
They
would have-
regular fees and
follow the
Book
normal
it,
booking
yeah.
process. Is what would happen.
I guess where I'm going with this is, this election is going to be fraught. It's a Green candidate, an NDP candidate, I believe a Conservative candidate, and a Liberal candidate. I mean, is there going to be eggs and rotten tomatoes, or do we not need to worry about that?
Who's the damage deposit?
I would hope there wouldn't be, but
I have no idea. We've got quite a polarized community from West Van to Pemberton. A whole very different demographics up and down the corridor. Okay, let's trust to luck that everything goes off swimmingly.
okay.
Let's just hope that the RCMP is doing sort of traffic duty somewhere close or something. Maybe somebody should hint to them on that one. Maybe somebody will.
Putting forward the motion, Carl.
Thank you. And a second. Any further discussion? All in favour? Opposed? That carries. Thanks, Peter. So you'll communicate that to the requestors. Thanks. Okay, so now we are looking at 3 bylaws. These are adoption, a reversal of third, and a redoing of third. We'll do them one at a time. So I will move that the Trees, Views and Landscapes bylaw number 393 of 2007, amendment bylaw number 518 of 2017 be adopted. Can I have a second? And any discussion? I know I didn't have discussion that one. So I'll call the question. All in favour? Opposed? That carries. And second, I will move that the Board of Variance bylaw number 502 of 2016, amendment bylaw number 519 of 2017 be adopted. Can I have a second? Any discussion? This was simply housekeeping, right, Peter? And we've done the readings. Everybody knows what we're talking about. So I'll call the question. All in favour? Opposed? That carries. And finally, the driveway crossings bylaw. I move that the third reading of the driveway crossings bylaw number 521 of 2017 be rescinded. I'll take a second. And discussion? Seeing none, all in favour? Opposed? That carries. And I'll move that the driveway crossings bylaw number 521 of 2017 be amended in accordance with the track changes version attached to this report. Can I have a second? Thanks. And a discussion. Fred.
On page 93 of 132, you've got 4.1.11. Isn't that essentially the same as on the next page, 6.2? What's word for word? I don't remember if that was an error or was that intentional?
It's identical.
You just moved it from one place to the other. Now's the time to fix it. It is identical, Fred? You compared it word for word?
I just did a quick bunch here. I don't see a material word change.
Yeah, I don't really see any difference.
Okay, Fred, I'll read it to you. So I'll do the 4.1, you check the other one.
Yeah.
For the purposes of this bylaw, consideration of the public works manager may take into account in determining the safety, suitability, or practicality of any particular driveway crossing or its continued use in compliance with this bylaw may include stability of a slope or supporting structure and protection of trees and other natural features, protection of persons, real property and chattels, and impacts on municipal and other infrastructure. Public works manager may, in his or her discretion, obtain or rely upon the advice of appropriate professionals in making such determinations. Sounds identical?
Yeah, there's two words there.
Okay.
Reversed, yeah.
Okay. So I think my intent must have been to move it from 4.1.11 to 6.2.
You thought better of it, then you cut and paste that fixed up section into 6.2,
Yeah,
which would make sense because you added a section.
it's not really setting out what the standards are, but it's really what happens upon inspection.
Yeah.
And obviously the public works manager needs to make an assessment. So what does he consider?
Yeah.
So strike 4.1.11.
Okay, so that's an amendment. You got that?
Which means 4.1.12 becomes 4.1.11.
Yeah, just do the renumbering. What else you got? Good catch, Fred.
That's it.
Ron?
Nope.
I wanted to ask if this was the place where we required paving of driveways within a certain amount of time, or is that a building bylaw issue?
I'll let the public works manager speak to that because I expect that he'll probably suggest that one might not want to encourage paving of driveways.
Sorry, repeat that again?
I would like to see that driveways in Lions Bay are eventually paved. Why? Because the gravel gets kicked onto the road over time, especially if it's an uphill driveway.
So from an environmental perspective, paving of driveways provides more runoff onto the roadway and complicates drainage issues.
Yeah, I understand the disadvantages, but I also understand the advantages. I mean, if we don't want unpaved driveways in Lions Bay. It tracks dirt all over the place. The gravel gets onto the road. It runs down the driveway and spray. When it rains here, it really rains. Runnels, but you see a lot of people continually deferring the driveway for whatever reason. Quite besides from all the technical considerations, and I hear you about runoff, especially on an uphill driveway. It just looks bad. Looks like the place isn't finished. Would you put that into a building bylaw, or would you put that into this bylaw?
Not this bylaw.
Not this one, eh?
It would be
Yeah.
a building bylaw if you
Yeah.
wanted to consider such a thing.
Yeah.
I might note just off the top of my head that almost every roadway is going to have an unpaved portion beside the paved portion.
But it's flat.
It's gravel.
Yeah, but it's flat. Not steeply sloped drive. Oh, I mean, just drive around the village and look after a rain. There's gravel on the road, And it gets kicked on the road as well. I mean, some of it you would think people want to do it themselves. I don't even know if we have to regulate it, but I just wanted to check that that wasn't due here. And this 7.11, we can force you to demolish your driveway?
Mm-hmm.
How do they get into the house?
There's a process. But ultimately, it's our land. There's a conflict, obviously. There's a common law right to access to one's property, but where the access is across the property of another, those rights must also be respected. And so yeah, there's an inherent conflict, but one party has the hammer of lawmaking ability. So yeah, according to the lawyers, yes, you can do this.
So we're not
and
granting
really
any-
what it is, it's to bring someone to the table who might not want to come to the table, and to address the issue.
But there's no way we can actually enforce this because we can't prevent you accessing your property.
Well, maybe
Especially if we
maybe
only
there
allow
would
one
be-
driveway.
Maybe there would be a different means of access. And maybe that access wouldn't involve a vehicle. Maybe you can access your driveway. Who's to say it has to be with a vehicle or your property?
But then I'm going to park my vehicle on the boulevard and break that law.
I'm just saying that, yeah, you can do this, but
So-
it's obviously a step that would be, it's the nuclear option, so to speak.
I'd say. So there's no easement being granted through any of this.
No,
There is no easement.
no.
It's, what is it? What authority are we? We're letting them do it, put a driveway,
Within the conditions set out in the bylaw.
but not as an easement.
No, we're just setting conditions for them to access their property across our boulevards.
But it's not a trespass.
No.
They're not trespassing on municipal property. Okay, I don't understand it. It's all very fascinating and everything, and I'm sure King Knut would have something to say about it in the 700s. But you're okay with that 7.11? It's not going to be challenged on that?
Yeah, that's 7.1 actually, which, sorry, I'm not looking.
7.1 or 7.11?
1.1.
Do we have a
page 96.
7.11?
Yeah, I'm looking at it.
Oh, 7.11, sorry. I'm looking at the...
Oh, not 7. Yeah, 7.11. Like the store.
Yeah. So,
You're jiggy with
so
that.
this could, for example, be a case of if somebody, let's say somebody had historically been given permission, as opposed to just doing it on their own, but if they had historically been given permission to have 2 or more driveways, and we determined that we needed that land upon which one of them was built, we could utilize this and say, sorry, we're taking back this property.
Okay, I'm with you. And so there's no the we are explicitly forbidding 2 driveways.
Mm-hmm.
How do people access the cottage if they don't have enough space in the side yard setback?
Then they would, in the course of applying for their cottage in the first place, access is going to be on the table in terms of what does this look like on this lot.
From the other road, or
So we'll figure it out, and if they need a variance, then part
So
of
you
their
can get
application would be a variance.
you can get a variance to this bylaw.
Sure, it's a regulatory bylaw.
Okay, so
Upon
that's
which
just for the
council-
record. So variances are available for hardship or whatever good reason. Okay, fine. I'm happy with that. So council appreciates that there's we're explicitly forbidding 2 driveways on a property, which there are several properties in Lions Bay that I'm topically aware of that have 2 driveways today, accessing the upper street and the lower. Okay, fine. So let us then return to what the motion is. So that was discussion on a seconded motion that the driveway crossings bylaw be amended, as amended, with the one change that we did, striking the one section and striking the one section. Sorry. So second motion on the table. All in favour? Opposed? That carries. And finally, I move that driveway crossings bylaw number 521 of 2017
You reread a third time as amended, that should say.
I was going to say, shouldn't I say as amended? Be reread a third time. Can I have a second? And any discussion on that one? No? All in favour? Opposed? That carries. Okay, correspondence. Let's whip through this. Ron, do you want to do the honours?
Yes, okay, go through general correspondence first. G1, update from MLA Jordan Sturdy. I think we've seen enough of his smiling face, except for page 104 where Mayor Burr looks like he needs to be somewhere shortly. No response. G2, West Vancouver affordability efforts. It's a letter to the Prime Minister, copied to the universe from West Vancouver, no response.
Well, I just want to mention something here. Oddly enough, I had drafted for some time getting together with West Van and other adjacent communities to see if we could cooperate on some sort of housing affordability thing. Whether that's taking advantage of the Ministry of Housing's, how much is it, Peter? $250 million fund to buy down land purchases for affordable housing, construction, something or other. We've got enough on our plate now to worry about, but affordable housing is even in Little Lions Bay, is an issue in terms of attracting staff to live here, firefighters, families with kids who go to our school. So this is not big city problem.
This letter is like at 100,000 feet.
It's very, very high level.
And going to the
And it is to the Prime Minister.
I presume it's because of Pam that it's even there in the first place.
I don't know why they would write this letter, to be honest.
There we go.
They should call a summit of the local municipalities to actually do something.
I would draw counsel to this G3 VEX IQ challenge, which I would normally dust, but I'm thinking as children's got me going on this, and a little story here. Am I led to believe that the Shao children are residents of Lions?
Yeah.
They are.
Yeah.
Okay. In that case, I like the story. I like the thing, and actually, this for discussion, I would actually go with $100 US for each of them, $200 US.
What's the grounds for that? I mean,
okay, well, firstly, they're representing the community, since there are the only two that are on this team in Western Canada, and they're going to the United States, and a pretty big deal. I'm going to guess when they win the big robot competition, and it shows their name, Village of Lions Bay, we'd like to think we paid for a couple meals for
we
them.
might have some Americans moving here.
There you go. So I think this is.
That's a bad thing.
It's not quite how I would have solicited this stuff, but I'm fine with it. So my recommendation is to 200 US.
Can we convert that to Canadian, please?
130.
Okay, fine. That's each. 150 each. There you go. 150 Canadian.
Staff, what do we think about? I mean, not so much the amount of money, which I'm fine with. It's do we supply an honorarium to anybody who asks, or are there criteria that they must meet?
It's not obviously a municipal grant. We only have, as far as I'm aware, policies related to municipal grant applications.
Community groups.
But I don't know what...
Council does have some discretionary funds, council-funded events. I mean, that's where we take some of the money to fund how sound forum.
This is a request that should be made of the PAC or the school district. Not the town you happen to live in. I mean, imagine if they lived in Vancouver. Would they go to Vancouver City Council? Well, maybe they would.
Well, think of them if they were your kid. Pick you.
Yeah.
One of your children is Olympic quality something or other, and went to the Vienna skating competition or something like that, and they made a blanket ask to everybody to assist them in this because poor Mr. and Mrs. Burke could barely make ends meet.
Which is true, in fact.
Which would be true at figure skating. So, I'd like to think that the villagers, again, the thing is just that we're so proud of our Olympians when they come home, for other people that are internationally recognized or nationally recognized. Kind of throw it into the same lump on this one.
Yeah, as a sponsorship, not as a grant.
No, it's just go for it, and we're assisting you on the way.
So, in terms of providing money, I mean, I'm just thinking about this a little further. You know, this kind of application would oftentimes come forward when I was with the SLRD. But in that case, each of the area directors had a fund, and they had some discretionary ability with respect to those funds in terms of small grant applications like this kind of thing. You know, we'd have school kids that came for, and they'd do a presentation in front of the board, and the area director would say, I'm going to give this group $500 to go to their BC provincial championships or whatever the case may be. So the question I think really comes down to out of what pot something like that would come if council was amenable to doing something like this. And I think
What's the size of our discretionary? In Chicago, they call it walking around money, which is actually
Well,
election
you have-
coming up.
You have zero, but you do have something called no walking around money, but in council funded, we call it miscellaneous council funded events, and that tends to be where we put things. I've never seen anything exactly like this,
No.
but
Yeah,
you know, when
it's
people
just-
come and say, you know, the House Sound Forum, that hadn't been in our budget, but they needed money for donations
It's
for
a
the
poor
lunch.
presentation, but the story is there.
I don't want to set the wrong precedent. That's all I'm concerned about. That everybody now
I don't
feels
think I've
weapons
seen another
free.
one of these from a villager in 6 years.
Well, I'd be happy to give them the money, but I'd like to retroactively put some criteria in place. I would think.
How about they report back to us after the event?
Yeah, exactly. Good thinking.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. So they provide a letter of the event and,
And
how they
let's-
stood.
Yeah, and let's say there must be residents, and maybe you wouldn't insist that they went to our school, although these two kids did, both of them.
Well, I think you know enough about them, so I think the letter back with their experience should be fine.
Yeah, the girls in my daughter's class.
There you go.
Um,
How do you
What
get
was
the
the
vote on
amount?
this?
$150 each.
150 each. Canadian.
150 Canadian.
each, you mean for each student?
Yeah.
Well, there's two of them.
Oh, I thought there was more than that.
They're part of a larger group, but I think it was just these two or
Yeah.
These are the two that were the applicants.
No,
Five
and Peter, I would ask you to just apply a few minutes thought to the criteria that we would apply to future such requests, just to make sure that they don't. Being a resident is obviously one of them.
And Carl, since you know the family, and with everyone's blessing, I'm fine with you making the call to the parents. No? Yes? Hand up? Hand down?
Sorry, just I'm rereading this to clarify. They've got this. The team is 5 students.
Yeah.
They got 2 tickets, so they're raising money to get 3 more tickets. Is what I get out of it. So it's three people. So you'd be talking about 450, not 300.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. It's just for their team.
Yeah.
They're
The
just-
team
yeah,
is
they're
5
just
people.
asking for a donation, so I'm thinking
Yeah.
rather than specifically to the student, just
Yeah.
say,
A
yes,
number.
we'll give you
Well,
a
yeah.
donation.
Same deal for me. $150 times 2, $300. That's
Oh, that seems a bit rich, actually.
Mhm.
Let's make it $150 total.
fine. Need a resolution, so recommended.
Thanks. We'll take that as a motion. Second.
Fred? Thank you.
Any further discussion? And Peter, you got that? Apply a few thoughts to a policy around future social. 5 criteria.
Can you phone mom and dad?
Sure.
Thank you. Interesting, and I wish all the general correspondence was that interesting. Response from Minister Reid Provincial Private Mortgage Program. Peter, unless you've got something to add here, no response.
No, so just a quick comment. I think if I remember correctly, there's some new stipulations which kind of streamline the private mortgage program throughout BC. However, the streamline process does not apply within the area in which we are included. So it applies for people like in Coldstream and whatnot in the interior, but the fast track process does not apply within our area.
What is that? Lower Mainland or?
It goes quite a ways up the coast, actually. and in way up past Powell River and inland.
Well, is it a
somewhere.
freshwater, saltwater thing?
I'm not sure. Been a while since I.
All right,
With
then
the-
to close off the general, which is the Econ Board of Directors designates, so I defer to Fred Carl.
Yeah, this last time how this happened was I got a phone call from Mayor Walton who told me how it was going to be, so I suspect it's going to be similar to that.
Stand down.
I think. Well, yeah. I mean, I think the idea was that I would be our grouping's representative to the board this coming year. I think, but yeah, it's neither here nor there. So I'll sort that out with them. Then we'll need a resolution on that one. So appointing whoever it is to be Lions Bay's representative to the Econ board. So I'll get with them. I'm seeing them all on Friday, so I'll talk to them about that.
All right, and your time is valuable. It does not have to be you.
True.
But if you're seeing them on Friday, maybe you could just have a quick chat and then you can just let me know.
It may still be Masato. I think they like doing it because there's a big tie into
Okay.
ESS.
All right, so that's a in your hands one then. Okay. The resident one, Leslie Nolan, an exceptional idea that came ahead of its time. And I think, Carl, you actually, I know internally we've recognized this as good ideas.
Yeah.
And I don't think the council, Carl, I don't think you've responded to her. It's just an internal one you've sent.
No, she has not been responded to.
Okay, so I think on this one, this is a thank you to her, and I'm going to suggest that Peter do that, and that it would be consideration for discussion on Thursday, actually.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. It's a great idea. Peter actually sent an email around very quickly saying this is a great idea as well. So I think we all like it. I would actually like to go quite a bit further, as you know. And Peter and I are somewhat in discussion on that one, only for the 2018 budget. So what we would do this year, I don't know. Is there anything we could do in terms of? I mean, the utility rates, the utility bills have gone out already, so there's no rebating of any secondary suite fee this year.
And I think, as the letter writer suggested, there needs to be some kind of a mechanism to ensure that the rent being charged is reasonable, because otherwise they just recoup
Up it by $1,200.
Yeah.
It's fraught with difficult.
So
I can see a rebate rather than.
Well, I think the concept has some merit. I think that there's, we just have to look at and examine it closely and determine, what are the options, and come back with something that for council to consider in due course. But like you say, it's going to have to be for 2018.
Let me email her. I'll say thanks for the idea. We like it. We're going to do something about it.
Okay.
Okay, and so that's the thank you, and then, so Peter, you've got it under your hat for.
Yeah, I think it's a great opportunity
I
to actually rationalise the
Yeah.
secondary suite surcharge bylaw as well, which, as you know,
Actually, very, very cool story. Anyhow, and for resident under R2, no response. Carl, you've already responded.
Yep.
It's in the thing here. So,
Yep.
and I think Mr. Resident knows to call and email if he wants to talk more.
Yep.
Done.
Thank you very much. So, motion to receive correspondence, and a second. Any further discussion? All in favour? Opposed? That carries. And new business. The first being the temporary use permit policy recommendation from staff. There's an on-table item, which I'm now looking for.
So it's not actually a recommendation, but what it is it's a draft temporary use permit policy for short-term rentals, so it's just an information report, just for you to have a look at what we've come up with at this point in time to address the proposed change in the zoning bylaw and the way the bylaw reads at first reading. So it's something to think about. It's something that we're going to have additional copies of at the public information meeting on Thursday night. It is included in the materials that we've uploaded to the website, if anyone is looking at that in preparation for Thursday night. And hopefully it will elicit some discussion and feedback from people on Thursday. And of course, if you have any immediate thoughts about it, you could certainly make those known now.
Well, it's seeing as we've only seen it for the first time today and on table, although I did glance at it when it came through on the email. I sort of stopped at the first thing. I would say licensed daycare, but other than that, I think we need to absorb this with. This is quite important to get right because it's the thing that actually regulates short-term rentals, right?
Yeah, and then there's sort of ranges of detail and that you can implement, and it's a case of trying to find that sweet spot where you've got all the important things, but you're not making it so complicated that people don't even want to read it. At the same time, there is and some of the way in which this is intended to work is to incorporate, it mentions, can't remember exactly where, but that the application will have more or less a pre-inspection checklist so that people will know what's expected and that they should be addressing those things if they expect to get approved on an application. And so more or less, safety requirements and that sort of thing to make sure that people are sort of following the building code. At the same
This is
time,
good stuff.
we also-
How did you pump this out so fast?
a lot of these were contained within Steve's report.
Does this cover B&Bs?
B&Bs, basically, we don't have a separate category for B&Bs under the new zoning bylaw
Yeah.
because basically the way that Airbnbs operate is like B&Bs. Depending on how many rooms you want to rent out, or is it the whole house? It's just you're not getting the breakfast part, but we don't need
The
to
fact whether
separately
you serve
regulate.
breakfast or not is irrelevant, I would think.
Exactly. So we don't really need to have a separate
short-term rental.
category. It's
Yeah.
a short-term rental, is what it is.
And how are we handling a house swap situation?
By definition, short-term rentals do not include home exchanges.
Because it's not for pecuniary benefit or...
Yeah, there's a financial component.
Yeah.
So forth, so.
Well, I mean, to the extent that I think we've reviewed this, which is not in huge depth, this is the dogs.
It's the what?
It's the dogs!
Breakfast.
No, it's
I hope it's not a dog's breakfast.
the dog's bollocks,
Oh,
which is British rhyming slang,
mm.
which is really good.
Okay.
Hopefully that was muffled.
Yeah, what he actually said was. Just kidding.
I won't tell you the rhyme either. If I'm blushing, it's because I realize I probably shouldn't have said that. Okay, thanks, Peter. That's good stuff. So, what are you looking for from us on this one? Comments?
Received?
Yeah, obviously. But and then you want some comments back by when?
I think that council should listen to any comments and
Yeah.
feedback that you get on Thursday night, and then you'll have had more time to consider it as well as any feedback that we get from the public.
Yeah.
And then at the next council meeting, you can direct staff what to do.
Well, in light of that, I would like to see this in some detail in the PowerPoint presentation.
Well, it's, as I say, available for people to look at now, and will be a handout at the meeting. So it's
Let me
way
quickly
too-
review this.
it's
I
way
like all of it.
way
You know
too much
perfectly what was
information for the. I mean, Steve can reference it. He's seen it, but it's way too much to put in a PowerPoint.
Oh, you're not
It'll
going to put
be a
all of
PowerPoint
this,
on its
no.
own.
No, I think you want to summarize this in 5 lines. What are the core elements of components of the TUP, so that the people at the public information meeting know. I mean, these are all very reasonable, very good stuff. Again, recognizing nobody's going to go to the website. Well, maybe 5 people will. They're not going to be able to read it there and then. So let's see what we can do to present it to them. Okay, so motion to receive. That's a motion and a second. All in favour? Opposed? That carries. Let's give Nye something to do. He's looking like he's thinking about ditches.
Thinking about the RFP.
Ah,
that
he's writing it in his head.
It's got to be out tomorrow.
Nye, I don't think you need to stick around if you don't want to. But we're almost done. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So
Okay.
the next item
Next
is
one.
policy 1703, which is the community amenity contributions policy. So this would be the policy that's referenced in section 7.3 of the zoning bylaw. So basically, what this does is, in recognition of Lions Bay's current official community plan, which recognizes the need to assess and provide for infill housing opportunities on an incremental site-specific basis, and provide alternative housing for a broad array of communities, existing and future demographic, provides for opportunities. Well, the bylaw provides for opportunities for people to increase the density on their land, provided that their lots are greater than 1,000 square meters, to provide for a detached cottage. Now, they cannot have, the way the bylaw is written now, both a detached cottage and a secondary suite. The other thing, so
The way the presentation is now says you can, and it says there's an option to exclude that both.
I think the way the bylaw is written is that you cannot do both, but that was a point upon which an option or a decision was made already by council, but which
We're going to present.
the public will have an opportunity to see what was the option, what was chosen, do they agree with that choice. But the policy provides that, where you're taking advantage of either that opportunity, which exists in the new zoning bylaw, or if you are taking advantage of the opportunity to take your larger lot and subdivide it, that would be another instance whereby, in order to do that, you would be expected to provide a community amenity contribution, and that's in recognition of the fact that council has a discretionary opportunity to either approve a rezoning or not, and in recognition of the fact that rezonings that increase density have an impact on the community. So as a means to alleviate those impacts, whether it's through subdivision or adding a cottage or making a duplex instead of a house, those kinds of things ought to have some kind of contribution back from the property owner in order to have that privilege and to address the impacts that has if approved. So that's what this policy is about. There are a number of community amenities which are listed, and the idea is that these would be all things which the proponent would be able to say, well, I'll build you a new transit shelter in, if my increased density is approved, or I'll provide a cash in lieu contribution towards any one of these things, because they'll all be under a single reserve fund. So any cash in lieu contributions which are made go into that fund for these amenities. They'd not be able to be spent on anything other than towards these amenities. Then the numbered paragraphs basically set out some of the basics around how this is intended to operate, and in paragraph 5 stipulate what the various different rates are, the targets are, target contributions, depending upon the type of density that is being requested, or the density increase that's being requested. So we have everything from a simple subdivision of land to to an increase in density to accommodate a cottage, to facilitating construction of a duplex, to taking an RS1 parcel and making it an RM1 parcel. So that'd be, for example, the two large lots at the end of Kelvin Grove, as an example of something that would fall under that. And or rezoning from CU1 to C1 or RM1. So that would be like, for instance, taking the public works yard lands, and after moving the public works yard, then developing that land as either commercial or multiple residential or a combination thereof.
Or something new, like hospitality.
Or something new. Could
That we don't have a
could
zone
be
for.
something new. So that, you know, this is, so, yeah.
Or a new zone.
It would still be,
Well, that's probably be commercial, right?
yeah.
Is a duplex RS1?
I think it's actually RM1. It's a subset of RM1, I believe. So what this sets out is target contributions of 33% for a straight-up subdivision of land. 33% of the increase in value of the property as subdivided, which is down from the initial 75% that was proposed on the first go-round.
Is this of the increased value or of the total value?
It's the increase.
Increase, right?
So if the so-called lift in value is, say, $100,000, then this would be $33,000.
Yeah, I read this to say the parcels create. So I subdivide. I've got a piece of land that's an acre. I subdivide into 2.5 acres. Well, I forget about the size. It's worth $1 million, and I subdivide, and it's now worth 1.8. I've got to
So-
give you 33% of 1.8.
No, 33% of 800.
But that's how the land value of the parcels created. I created 2 parcels.
As a result of the additional density. So you might be creating 3 parcels, for all I know. So it could be more than 1 parcel.
Yeah.
So, but it's of the additional density. So the additional density is the additional lot you've just
It's the
created.
new lots.
Yeah. So let's say you just created
Well,
one
but your
new lot.
existing lot is now much smaller, and so its density is increased
Right,
as well.
But you're saying, but in your example, you said you had originally 1 parcel worth 1 million,
Mhm.
and then you subdivided it into 2 parcels worth 1.8 million combined,
Mm.
right?
Mhm.
So the increase density, the additional density, is the 800,000 that you previously didn't have.
Okay, as long as that says what it's supposed to say. I mean,
Yeah.
because it needs to be only on the added value.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And then adding a cottage is, the target is much, much lower, at $100 per square meter of floor area, and the cottage can only be a maximum of 1,200 square meters. So that would be a maximum of $12,000.
100 square feet.
Sorry,
100 square
1,200.
meters.
100. Sorry, I beg your pardon.
I want one of them.
115 square meters.
Yeah.
So it would be maximum cost would be $11,500 if you
Yeah.
maxed out on your square footage. A duplex, we've got 200 a square
And that will
meter.
barely pay for the additional water servicing, or are utilities on top of that?
Sorry?
Because we're going to have to run a new water stub to the DMARC, where they take.
Well, we bring water to the property line.
Yeah,
The
so that's
property
gonna-
owner still, if they, that would be their cost, not ours.
But who pays for bringing the water to the property line?
It's already there.
They do.
It's already
It's
there.
not. The water line runs down the middle of the road. We're going to have to dig up the road and put in a tap and all that stuff.
No, they can run off the residential service.
Oh, the existing one, so they've got a tap in there.
Yeah,
Okay,
after the property line.
got you. Okay.
And so for the Kelvin Grove example, it would be 50% of the lift, and for the Public Works yard property, the example, it would be 50% of the lift as well.
Yeah, I read this not to say the left, I read it to say everything, but I'll take your word for it that that's what it means. But these numbers seem high to me. seems like we take a good portion of their good luck. Is that standard? I'm asking. I don't know.
It ranges. Originally, we started at the high end of the range, so we brought that down. These are pretty. You've got Lions Bay has, for example, in D and E, 5D and E. We're really only talking about 2 opportunities in this village. So
Of current, unless we start expanding into flatlands in the crown lands.
yeah, but these are major deals, and these are targets. These are negotiations.
Yeah.
These are situations where, and depending upon what somebody brings to the table, which included in here, development affordable, rent restricted, special needs, or seniors housing.
Yeah.
So if somebody comes and says, I'll develop this and I'll include some seniors housing in this project
Accessible housing,
that,
single
to
floor.
meet the needs of Lions Bay, then we negotiate this number way down. If it's a desirable amenity that's being offered.
So now, what's the scenario where they go into crown land? So it's not currently subdivided. There's no parcels there, as I understand it. What's the lift then?
They'd still need to be rezoned from those parcels. Would be
So they would have a value. No, so here, for example, here. No, here at the end of Sunset. So I mean, this is a very obvious. There's a big bench here and there's a bench here. So this crown land developer says, I'm going to buy this piece here. I'm going to put 40 houses in there, a mix of single family, duplex, and seniors. So there's no parcels here now. What's the lift?
so. First of all, it would be us approaching the province, not developers going straight to the province and getting buying that without the province coming to us and saying, is this something that meets with your zoning? Because if it doesn't, then they're not likely to approve that kind of an application.
Mm-hmm.
So there'd be a discussion first off, and I would anticipate we would be the ones approaching the province if
On behalf of the proponent.
If the community, I think before you go to do something like that, there needs to be, in my opinion, a discussion with the community on an OCP kind of basis.
Yeah.
That kind of level discussion. And then if the community says, yeah, we're in favor of that, then you start looking at the ways that you move that forward.
Okay, I don't know about the details.
But that's way ahead of, that's a whole
But
bunch
this
of stuff
accommodates
that
that,
would
is
have.
what I'm asking.
Sure, this would accommodate
Okay.
that. And this can be amended as well. This is intended, ultimately, yes, it's written as a policy, but this would ultimately be added to the OCP as an addition, section 10, I guess it would be, of the OCP, just like section 9 was added to incorporate policies regarding protection of the environment and green building policies and so forth. So a number of different initiatives, climate change initiatives and so forth. This would be incorporated as section 10 in my mind. Just as we'll have to amend the OCP to incorporate the development permit areas, which are being moved from the zoning bylaw where they don't belong into they have to be moved into the OCP because that's what the Local Government Act requires. So.
Okay. Great. This is a lot to absorb, obviously. It's for all of us, right? It's the first time we've seen this. So that's great, Peter. Thanks. Again, well done. I don't know how you churn this stuff out so fast. So take a motion to receive the report. And a second. Any further discussion? All in favour? Opposed? Carries. Public questions and comments? Sure. Very patient. Thanks for being here. And now I'll take a motion to...
This was at the back of the agenda. Were we to deal with that today?
No, that was actually supposed to be attached to.
That was if somebody had comments in the public comment
at the
section.
beginning of the agenda, actually.
That was the delegation.
Oh, right, okay.
If anyone
If there was.
wanted to be heard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I tend to wonder, you know. So nobody came. Is that because there really was nobody, or they didn't know, or yeah? Well, I guess that's municipal business, right?
I did speak with
Anne-Marie?
Anne-Marie, and she was on the fence as to whether or not she would come, just to see if anybody else came. But she didn't have any desire to say anything.
Okay, fine. So I'll take a motion. Well, I'll move that we close the meeting to the public on the basis of matters to be considered under the following sections of the Charter: 91C, 91I, and 92B. Second? All in favour? Opposed? That carries. We're returning out of closed session at 9:34. Reporting out that matters were discussed pertaining to the reasons for closing the meeting. And with that, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn the regular business meeting. Thank you. And a second. All in favour? Opposed? That carries. Meeting adjourned.